Listen, we've been hearing it for months. You know, the housing crisis, it's happening. 2021, all these gurus have been saying like winter is coming like it's a Game of Thrones, but they're not really like even paying attention to the fact of what's going on right this very moment. And they don't see that the housing crisis right now has already started. I'm just gonna be completely honest and share a story with you that's just happened to me. I've been working with a buyer that has been trying to buy this house for almost 6 weeks now. And during that 6 weeks, the seller took the forbearance. If you don't know what the forbearance is basically you ask your lender because you've been affected by the recent events and that you want to take those house payments and put it to the end of your loan. What some people didn't seem to understand, and what this seller didn't understand, is that those payments aren't forgiven. They're not like magically disappear and the bank's gonna eat that cost. We get to closing, everything's done. Hours beforehand, we find out because he wasn't honest with the lender. He wasn't honest with the title company. He told them a payoff. And so we were $6,600 off. This guy can't sell his house and he doesn't have the money. This is the beginning of the housing crisis. Many people don't know, especially in this situation. If you have a 401k or even an old one laying around from a previous work employer, you can borrow money against your 401k without penalty. Because of the CARES Act, they allowed you to take that money out without having any kind of penalty right now. Granted, that's going to go against, you know, your savings for your future, but it could help you save you from not losing your home. The housing crisis before this was even just as frustrating. I've been talking to real estate agents across the country, and every single one of them say the same thing. Housing prices are going crazy. They can't find homes that are affordable for their first-time home buyers. There's houses that they know aren't worth the money that people are paying for them right now.
The red-hot housing market. August sales of existing homes hit the highest level in nearly 14 years, soaring more than 10% from a year ago. But inventory is low. There were nearly 2 million fewer homes available than at the same time last year.
My friend Javier Vindana has worked with buyers in Arizona, and they've been outbid ridiculous amounts of money, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 for a first-time home buying experience.
What I'm noticing now in this market and what I think will happen for the next foreseeable future is concerning to me. For some reason during coronavirus, where people thought the housing market was going to crash, the opposite happened, right? Sellers stopped selling, buyers wanted to buy, created this insane supply-demand situation where houses were selling much more than the value they were supposed to sell for. We're talking people waiving their appraisal contingencies, so that way whatever it appraises at does not matter because they're going to force the value of that house to go higher because now that new house will be a comp or comparable for that neighborhood, and now their neighbors are going to try to sell it for more, and it's further and further taking the ability for first-time home buyers to purchase away from them.
I don't blame the sellers. I mean, if you're going to take a contract, why wouldn't you take the contract that's going to give you $20,000 over list price instead of taking the kid who has a government-backed loan and it's just going to try to buy it at list price? Of course, as a seller, you want to make as much money as possible, but it's just driving the price higher and higher and higher. And the interest rates being so low, it's causing this problem for first-time home buyers. If the interest rates don't go up and the prices don't come down, it's one of those things. That's how the market's always been driven. And a lot of people are nervous because they're saying, well, you know, what about 2008 and 2009 when we had the biggest foreclosures throughout the United States? And then there's people on the other side that are saying, well, it's not going to happen. There's going to be no foreclosures like there was in 2008 and 2009 because a lot of people have a good 8% equity in their houses. It's not possible for them to be foreclosed on. But let's be realistic. If you have taken the forbearance and you have not made 1, 2, 3, 4 payments on it, and you're like, well, wait a minute, Mr. Bank, I have $100,000 worth of equity in my house. Can't I just use that to make those payments? The bank isn't going to let you do that. Matter of fact, they're hoping, they're praying, they're like begging, please don't make that payment so they can foreclose on you and they can eat up that profit. They can eat up that equity. They're not going to fail like they did before because they can eat up the equity in all these people's houses, and all they're going to do is resell them. Now, if you do have equity in your house and you haven't lost your job, but things are just kind of tight and struggling because, you know, your business isn't working the way it used to be because of the shutdowns and everything, you can, if you have like a ton of equity, go ahead and think about getting a HELOC. I don't know if you've ever seen a HELOC, but it's just a home equity line of credit.
So let's just say that, you know, your house is worth $300,000, but you only owe $250,000. You have $50,000 worth of equity that you can work with. Now, listen, not every lender is going to let you borrow 100% of what your home is worth, but you might find some that might let you borrow 90% of what your home is worth, and maybe you can take out a loan all the way up to $270,000. So you might be able to take out $20,000 and pay that back. So there's a lot. You get a lot of tax benefits with interest because it is on a more, you know, it is on a piece of property. Maybe it's your primary residence. You might be able to save some money there. A lot of times there's no closing costs with home equity lines of credit. So it's one of the, there's a lot of benefits to getting that type of thing. And you know what? I always tell clients, hey, go get your line of credit set up. If you don't use it, fine. But if you ever run into an emergency, I can tell you what, if the economy changes, banks are not doing HELOCs. So I always suggest just getting it done and having one there for an emergency.
It's totally different than getting like a second mortgage. That's something completely different. A HELOC is basically you're borrowing the equity from yourself and you just write a check. So if you're in a financial crisis right now and you're trying to make ends meet, consider getting a HELOC. You might as well borrow your own money. The interest rates on them are really reasonable, and you're only having to pay the interest on what you borrow, not for the whole entire loan, like you would if you were, you know, doing a second mortgage where you would have another mortgage, just like a standard payment. You only would get a payment that would be on exactly what you borrowed. So definitely consider a HELOC. If you want to sell your house right now, I mean, it's easy for you to sell. That's most equity you're ever going to get. And if you didn't have any other plans, or if you were thinking about downsizing, this is the time to do it. Don't let the banks get a hold of your equity. Try to save your home as much as possible. Don't let these big house flippers and investors take over your house that you've worked really, really hard for. And if you're a new home buyer, just hold tight. Things are going to look up for you really soon because unfortunately, there is going to be some foreclosures. You might pay a little bit more in interest, but at least you can get into a house. Okay, so I haven't painted the most rosy picture when it comes to the real estate market as we look at it right now. But that doesn't mean that time can't heal all wounds, just like it always does. Everything always corrects itself. The market tends to always do that. But I have given you some tools that you can talk to your financial advisor if you're in a state where you're not sure if you're going to be able to save your home or not. And today happens to be the election day. And no matter who wins, the path of the real estate crisis has already been carved. If you'd like to watch some more binge-worthy content about real estate, go ahead and click this playlist right here. My name is Kristina Smallhorn, your real estate whisperer, and I tell you all this because good real estate information matters.